Up north here, it's a gamble. When that storm approaches, ooh, it's gonna turn nasty. Nowhere to hide, nobody to save you.
For over a decade, the Cornelia Marie was the heart of Deadliest Catch, led by Captain Phil Harris and later his sons Josh and Jake. Fans cheered them on until August 2022. An old court document surfaced, revealing a dark secret Josh had hidden for 24 years. Discovery immediately cut ties, removed the boat from the show, and pulled episodes from streaming platforms. A legendary boat, once a symbol of family and grit, was now shadowed by scandal. What did Josh do? Where it all began.
Out there, I had an experience this year that I had a pulmonary aneurysm.
The story of the Cornelia Marie began back in 1989 in the small, sea-salted town of Bayou La Batre, Alabama. Known for generations of shipbuilders and craftsmen, La Batre was a place where steel met salt, and experience spoke louder than blueprints. For decades, its docks had sent off hundreds of vessels, shrimpers, trawlers, and crabbers, each carrying a bit of the town's spirit out to sea. But the Cornelia Marie wasn't just another vessel built in that famous yard. It represented the closing chapter of an era. This was the final major commercial build overseen by the legendary shipwright Elmo Horton, a man whose name still carries respect along the Gulf Coast. With a solid steel hull, a wide beam, and a long, sleek deck, the Cornelia Marie was forged to battle the unforgiving waters of the Bering Sea. Stretching 128 feet from bow to stern and spanning 28 feet across, the vessel had a deep draft of just over 11 feet. Every inch of it spoke of strength and endurance. The heavy steel construction gave it the backbone to cut through towering waves and face the worst of Alaskan weather. Below deck, twin Cummins QSK-19M diesel engines provided unmatched power, 750 horsepower each, enough to drive the boat at nearly 14.5 knots. For a craft of its size, that was impressive speed, especially when time meant everything during short crab season. When others slowed down, this one charged ahead. Fuel capacity was another secret to its dominance. The Cornelia Marie carried 28,500 gallons of diesel and an additional 3,000 gallons of fresh water, enough to stay out on the open sea for weeks. In the brutal world of commercial crabbing, that endurance made all the difference. While rival vessels were forced to turn back for refueling, the Cornelia Marie kept fishing, chasing quotas farther and longer than most dared. Out there, where storms could strike without warning and rescue was never guaranteed, self-sufficiency meant everything. At a cost of roughly $2.5 million to build, it was a bold investment at the time. But it paid off handsomely. The Cornelia Marie quickly earned a name for being fast, strong, and dependable, a working legend among boats built to survive one of the harshest fisheries on the planet. Its name, too, carried meaning beyond the paint on its hull. Ralph Collins, the man who commissioned it, didn't choose a name from myth or history like so many captains did. Instead, he named the vessel after his wife, Cornelia Marie Collins. She wasn't simply a name on paper. She worked beside him, managing the business side of the operation and ensuring that everything ran smoothly. Naming the vessel after her was a gesture of deep respect. Even after their marriage ended, the name stayed, unchanged and untouchable. By that point, it had become more than a dedication. It was an identity. With its aquamarine hull, crisp white accents, and striking yellow banners, the Cornelia Marie stood out wherever it went, whether docked in Kodiak, waiting out bad weather in Dutch Harbor, or cutting through the gray swells of the Bering Sea. But beneath its bold look was a heart built for endurance. From the start, the vessel faced the worst that the northern seas could offer, chasing king crab, opilio crab, salmon, and herring across brutal seasons that tested both man and machine. Its long range meant the Cornelia Marie could outlast many of its competitors, pushing farther when others turned back. In an industry where every hour could decide success or failure, this endurance set the boat apart. It quickly became one of the most respected names among those who risked everything on the water. The early crew was a mix of veterans and greenhorns, men drawn by the promise of high pay and the thrill of danger. Some came chasing fortune, others running from something they'd left behind. But no matter their reasons, once aboard, they all faced the same cold, violent truth of the Bering Sea. Icy waves crashed over the bow, freezing fingers and numbing bones. Wind screamed through the rigging like a warning from nature itself. Every step on that deck demanded focus. One slip could mean a life lost to the sea. Yet the Cornelia Marie kept going, voyage after voyage. During the deadly winter of 2005, when the Big Valley went down in the dark waters of the Bering Sea, the Cornelia Marie joined the frantic search for survivors. Only one man was pulled from that wreck alive, but the rescue attempt left an indelible mark on everyone aboard. Long before TV cameras ever came near it, the Cornelia Marie had already earned a reputation as a boat that didn't back down. Not from danger, not from the sea, and not from duty. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, the Cornelia Marie had grown into a powerhouse. A major refit extended her by 22 feet, boosting her crab-holding capacity by another 100,000 pounds. Fully loaded, she could haul more than 300,000 pounds of crab in one trip. While others struggled to stay afloat during tough seasons, the Cornelia Marie pushed through, powered by determination, smart leadership, and hard work, the very qualities that would one day make her a star of reality television. And at the center of it all stood one man who would define the boat's legacy, Phil Harris. He joined the Cornelia Marie in the early 1990s, earned his stripes the hard way, and by 1998 he had taken command as captain. The next chapter of her story, and his, was only just beginning. The turning tide. Phil Harris was a man cut from a different cloth, tough, demanding, and loyal to the bone. On the Cornelia Marie, he wasn't just a captain, he was a father figure. Through every storm, injury, and sleepless night, he stood behind his crew like family. His connection with that steel giant went beyond work. It was personal. For over 20 years, Phil and the Cornelia Marie became inseparable, shaping each other's destiny. Phil's roots traced back to the small town of Bothell, Washington, where his journey began beside his father. At just 8 years old, he learned the rhythm of fishing, the patience, the timing, and the grind. By 17, he dropped out of high school, chasing not dreams, but dollars. A friend had made over $100,000 in a single crab season and rolled back home in a shiny new car. Meanwhile, Phil drove an old Chevelle and knew he wanted more. So, he packed up his life and headed north toward the Bering Sea. That first season nearly broke him. The work was brutal, the sea unforgiving, and the pay, nothing. He quit. But when his captain mocked him for walking away, Phil's pride lit a fire. He came back the next season, determined to prove himself. At 19, his persistence paid off. He earned $130,000 in a single run. 2 years later, at 21, he had his own vessel, the Golden Viking. On his birthday, his skipper handed him the wheel. But success didn't come easy. His new boat came with debts, constant breakdowns, and the enormous challenge of earning respect as one of the youngest captains on the water. At one point, he faced $50,000 in emergency repairs. Most would have folded under that pressure. Phil didn't. By his mid-20s, he had already become known across the Bering Sea for his grit, quick thinking, and relentless drive. Yes, he smoked like a chimney and barked orders like a drill sergeant. But under that rough exterior was a man who cared deeply for his crew. He split profits fairly, stood by his men, and never asked anyone to do what he wouldn't. That loyalty kept many of his deckhands returning season after season, even through the deadliest winters. While his professional life thrived, his personal life was far less stable. 2 divorces and a constant battle with addiction painted a more complex picture. He wasn't a perfect man, but when it came to his crew and the boat, he gave everything he had. Empty pots weren't just bad luck to Phil, they were sleepless nights. because to him, an empty pot meant his crew might go home broke, and that was unacceptable. Under his leadership, the Cornelia Marie evolved dramatically. In a major overhaul, the vessel was sliced into 4 massive sections and lengthened by 22 feet, increasing her crab-holding capacity by a full 100,000 pounds. Soon after, his sons, Josh and Jake, joined him on deck. The boat was no longer just a workplace. It became a family legacy. Then came 2005, a year that changed everything. The Cornelia Marie was chosen as one of only 4 vessels to be featured full-time on Deadliest Catch. Out of more than 250 working boats, producers narrowed their list down to 89. But the Cornelia Marie stood out for one reason: Captain Phil Harris. At first, Phil wasn't sold on the idea. Cameras on deck, he wasn't sure how that would work. He worried about distractions, about safety, and about private moments being turned into TV. The Discovery Channel wanted authenticity. Phil wanted to protect his crew. But that same year, the crab industry made a massive shift. The new individual fishing quota system replaced the chaotic derby-style race for crab. The change favored the most organized and efficient captains, and the Cornelia Marie was at the top of that list. So Phil gave it a shot. Bringing Josh and Jake aboard added something powerful to the show, a real family dynamic. Yet Phil didn't go easy on them. He was as hard on his sons as he was on anyone else, believing they had to earn their place. Viewers saw it all: the tension, the lessons, and the moments when being a father clashed with being a captain. One unforgettable moment came when Phil told Jake, "You need to go to treatment, man. At least you'll have a fighting chance." That raw honesty defined Phil. He wasn't acting for the cameras. His struggles, humor, and humanity made him real to millions of viewers. And that humor, gritty, sarcastic, and sharp, was legendary. Lines like, "I feel like a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest," or "Now you know why lions eat their young," weren't just funny. They showed his spirit. Beneath the stress and exhaustion, he found ways to laugh, and that kept him going. The Cornelia Marie itself became a symbol. That bold mix of aquamarine, white, and yellow turned it into a floating brand. Fans bought hats, t-shirts, mugs, even miniature models of the boat. Seeing it docked felt like spotting an old friend. Even when ownership shifted or the boat disappeared from the show, its image never lost power. And it wasn't just about looks. The Cornelia Marie earned its fame through performance. During the brutal 2005 season, it was among the top catchers on the Bering Sea. Phil drove his crew hard, chasing storms, outrunning rivals, and staying on the grounds longer than most dared. The boat's size and strength gave them that edge. At 128 feet long, capable of carrying nearly 300 tons of crab, it meant more hauling and fewer trips back to port. Those weren't just TV highlights. They were proof of Phil's work ethic. But beneath that unstoppable drive was a silent battle. Phil's larger-than-life energy came with a cost. His smoking, caffeine, and stress were eating away at his health. In 2008, he suffered a pulmonary aneurysm while at sea. It should have been the moment to slow down, but he didn't. Not the cigarettes, not the late nights, not the grind. Then, in 2010, at just 53 years old, tragedy struck. Phil suffered a massive stroke. The world watched as the man who had once ruled the Bering Sea began to fade. His strength had carried him through storms and loss, but against this final battle, even Captain Phil Harris couldn't fight forever. When the sea stood still. It was January 29, 2010, a day that forever changed the Cornelia Marie. The crew was offloading crab when everything went silent. Captain Phil Harris suddenly collapsed on deck. It was a massive stroke. Chaos erupted as his crew sprang into action, radioing for immediate help. EMTs rushed in, but St. Paul Island was as remote as it gets. No major hospital for hundreds of miles. They did everything they could to stabilize Phil before arranging a medevac to Anchorage. As the helicopter lifted off, His sons and crew stood helpless on the icy dock, watching their captain being flown away, fighting for his life. Cameras captured every desperate moment, each radio call, each cry for help. It forced everyone to wonder, should the world really see something so painful? Phil wasn't awake to give his answer. Discovery worked closely with the Harris family, and his sons made the brave decision to let the footage air. They believed people needed to see the truth, to honor their father as he truly was. Still, it was a decision that divided fans to this day. At first, hope filled the air. Phil began showing signs of recovery, squeezing hands, talking, even cracking jokes. Doctors were stunned. Stroke patients often need months to make that kind of progress, but Phil did it in days. For a brief moment, it seemed like the sea's toughest captain might cheat death once again. Then, without warning, a sudden brain bleed changed everything. His condition worsened rapidly. Surrounded by his sons and closest friends, Phil's fight came to an end. On February 9, 2010, the unthinkable happened. Captain Phil Harris was gone. His ashes were divided, half sealed inside a Harley-Davidson gas tank alongside his mother's remains, and the other half scattered at sea, where his heart had always belonged. When Deadliest Catch aired the episode Redemption Day on July 20, 2010, 5.4 million viewers tuned in. It became one of the show's most watched and emotional moments ever. People across the world cried with the Harris family. For them, Phil wasn't just a TV captain anymore. He was the beating heart of Deadliest Catch. Years later, fans still post his quotes, wear his shirts, and share his humor. His voice hasn't faded, and his legacy still sails on the waves. After Phil's passing, his sons Josh and Jake faced a mountain of challenges. They wanted to keep the Cornelia Marie in the family, but it wasn't that simple. They didn't own the entire boat, and buying out the remaining shareholders would cost far more than they could afford. To make matters worse, the vessel needed expensive repairs. The brothers tried everything, applying for loans, pitching investors, but no one believed in them. The banks saw them as too young, too risky, and too untested. Adding to their struggle was a complicated partnership with Cornelia Marie Devlin, the woman for whom the boat was named and Phil's former business partner. She held a significant share in the vessel and didn't always agree with the brothers' plans. Tensions flared during negotiations. For years, Josh and Jake fought not just to keep the boat, but to keep their father's name alive. During this time, the Cornelia Marie entered one of its darkest chapters. Phil's old friend Derek Ray stepped in as interim captain, hoping to honor Phil's wish that the boat remain part of Deadliest Catch. But Ray's leadership quickly caused friction. He was strict, old school, and unafraid to confront. He clashed with the grieving brothers, especially Jake. In one shocking incident, he accused Jake of using drugs on board and even called the police in an attempt to scare him straight. Fans were stunned. The once united crew suddenly felt broken. When the crab haul turned out poor, morale collapsed. The crew blamed Derek's leadership and nearly mutinied. This period became one of the most turbulent times in the boat's long history. Eventually, Josh found a way forward. Partnering with childhood friend and engineer Casey McManus, he pulled together funds for a relaunch. Josh bought 45% of the Cornelia Marie, Casey took 5%, and the remaining 50% was split between two outside investors. With that deal, they finally secured enough to overhaul the boat. They installed two new 750 horsepower Cummins diesel engines and made major structural upgrades. By 2015, Josh and Casey officially became co-captains. Of course, running a crab boat is no cheap task. Keeping the engines running, each with nearly 2,758 horsepower, meant constantly finding partners to help shoulder expenses. Crew wages, insurance, and fuel drained money fast. Josh often called the boat a black hole for cash. When the pandemic hit, costs exploded even more. Crew wages shot up nearly 10 times higher than before. Every trip became a gamble. One bad season could wipe them out completely. To stay in the game, they had to chase riskier catches, like golden king crab, deep in the most dangerous waters. The cameras made everything harder, filming during storms, delaying departures for perfect shots, and pushing for dramatic moments might have made great television, but it added serious danger for the crew. Sometimes Discovery even pulled the boat from the show, not because of performance, but over legal or image issues. For Josh and his team, it became a delicate balance, surviving both the ocean and the expectations of millions watching at home. While Josh kept the Cornelia Marie afloat, Jake's life began spiraling out of control. His addiction, first revealed when Phil confronted him about stealing painkillers, only worsened after their father's death. Arrests piled up, DUI charges, drug possession, car theft. In 2019, he went to prison for heroin-related crimes. Then, in 2024, Jake led police on a high-speed chase, ending with an 18-month sentence. It was heartbreaking for fans who'd once cheered for him as Phil's son. In October 2016, another blow hit. The Cornelia Marie and Josh were suddenly missing from Season 13 of Deadliest Catch. Fans flooded social media with outrage and confusion. Josh eventually released a video explaining the truth. The network had chosen to focus on other boats for that season. He expressed disappointment, but assured everyone they'd be back on the water soon. Viewers were furious. Many even threatened to boycott the show until the Cornelia Marie returned. Discovery claimed it was simply refreshing storylines, but to fans, the show without the Cornelia Marie felt empty. At the same time, the Harris family was battling tragedy behind the scenes. In July 2024, Renee Harris suffered a massive heart attack. She needed an emergency double bypass surgery, spent a week in intensive care, and was placed on life support after her heart stopped 4 separate times. Other relatives were hit with strokes and brain bleeds. The constant medical emergencies left the family emotionally and financially drained. Amid all this, the loss of Captain Grant Harris, Phil's father and Josh's grandfather, cut deep. Losing another captain in the family felt like losing the last anchor holding them steady. Josh often spoke about the weight he carried, trying to live up to 2 generations of legendary fishermen while battling his own demons. He admitted to struggling with depression and anxiety, but refused to give up. He pushed forward, determined to honor both his father and grandfather by keeping their story alive at sea. Through every storm, the film crew of Deadliest Catch became part of that family. They endured the same freezing winds, the same sleepless nights, and the same heartbreak. They saw the Harris family at their best and worst, celebrating victories and mourning losses side by side. So when the Cornelia Marie finally returned in Season 14, the reaction was explosive. Fans rejoiced. After being gone since 2017, its comeback in 2018 reignited the heart of the show. Social media overflowed with excitement, memes, and even petitions demanding the network keep the boat in the spotlight. Ratings soared as Josh and Casey took the helm together, carrying Phil's legacy forward. Viewers wanted to see if the next generation could live up to the legend. For many, seeing the Cornelia Marie again felt like welcoming back an old friend. Then in 2020, a new chapter began, Deadliest Catch, Bloodline. The spin-off moved the story from Alaska's icy storms to the warm waters of Hawaii. It all began when Josh discovered 50 to 60 old maps hidden in his father's stateroom. 3 of them marked with cryptic fishing notes for Hawaii. With Casey and Hawaiian fisherman Jeff Silva, Josh set out to follow those maps, hoping to uncover a side of Phil's past he'd never known. Together, they chased giant ahi tuna worth up to $2,000 apiece, and in the process, chased pieces of his father's legacy across the Pacific. As the Cornelia Marie kept sailing, another shift took place. Casey McManus gradually became the steady hand guiding the ship. While Josh faced personal battles and legal setbacks, Casey quietly took charge, handling operations, finances, and the crew. By Season 14, fans could clearly see the change. Casey had become the backbone of the Cornelia Marie, the one keeping Phil Harris's dream alive, while Josh's shadow grew smaller with every passing tide. The Fall of Josh Harris.
8 fathoms worth of just read. It was still reading the bottom.
By September 2022, the Cornelia Marie's story took its darkest turn. News broke that Josh Harris had pleaded guilty years earlier to the sexual assault of a minor. Discovery Channel reacted immediately, cutting all ties, pulling Deadliest Catch and Bloodline episodes from every major platform. Overnight, Josh's reputation collapsed, leaving fans in disbelief. It all resurfaced when old court files appeared online. They showed that in 1998, 15-year-old Josh had assaulted a 4-year-old girl, the child of a close family friend. Delays in testing meant charges came a year later, and in 1999, he pled guilty to a lesser charge. He served 9 months in juvenile custody and completed 2 years of counseling. For more than 20 years, this stayed hidden until it finally exploded into the public eye. Discovery acted fast. Episodes disappeared, posts were deleted, and Josh was erased from promotion. Fans were torn. Some praised the decision, others mourned losing the Cornelia Marie from the show they'd loved for years. Sadly, co-captain Casey McManus also suffered. Though completely innocent, his contract was not renewed when Discovery ended ties with Josh. Fans called it unfair, but the network wanted a clean break. Then came hope. In June 2024, Taylor Jensen announced he and his partners, Roger Thomas, Carrie Toya, and Jake Albanino, had bought the Cornelia Marie. Albanino would take the helm as captain, steering the boat toward a new beginning. Their goal was simple: to honor the legacy of the Cornelia Marie, not the fame. With new leadership, the legendary vessel was ready to face the Bering Sea again, stripped of scandal, but full of determination to rebuild its story the way it began, through hard work, loyalty, and the love of the ocean. For the first time since Captain Phil Harris's passing, the Cornelia Marie finally sails free from the long shadow of the Harris family name. It's the end of one powerful chapter and the beginning of another. But what do you think about this new era for the legendary boat? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the untold stories behind your favorite shows. Before you go, click on the video that's popping up on your screen right now. You definitely don't want to miss what comes next.